Morgan Fairchild, who usually featured in the magazine's two-page pin-up section, with eyes as sharp as blades and a modest but proud grin, was once the reason millions of readers turned to the magazine's centerfold. She represented strength and guile on television. However, Morgan was a very different person in real life. He was strong, lucid, and intellectual enough to maintain his integrity in Hollywood without ever giving in to any unscrupulous tactics. Headlines weren't necessary for her. Scandals weren't necessary for her. Furthermore, she never had to act like someone else. What actually became of Morgan Fairchild then? Why does her name still cause people to halt any time they see an old TV guide cover or a dust-covered VHS tape from memory, amidst a sea of sex symbols that flashed brilliantly before disappearing? Let's review some of the lesser-known facts of Morgan Fairchild's life. What was previously forgotten? About a lady who created her famous persona on her own, without asking for permission, without exchanging, and without making any noise. On February 3, 1950, Morgan Fairchild was born in Dallas, Texas, having Patsy Ann McClenny as their birth name. She came from an academic family and was the oldest daughter. At Richardson High School in Richardson, Texas, her mother, Martha Jane Hart McClenny, taught English. Edward Milton McClenny, her father, worked as an engineer. Morgan's early years were very different from the glitzy persona the world would eventually learn about. She had a plump body, wore spectacles, was shy, and was frequently made fun of by her classmates, who called her Fatsy Patsy. Everything changed in a single classroom moment. Patsy was too terrified to finish the report she was supposed to write about a book. She was unable to exhibit it even by standing. Her mother put her in a drama class in the hopes that acting would help her get over her dread of public speaking, rather than reprimanding her. The decision wasn't made at random. Morgan would live his entire life as a result of that choice. Patsy started acting in children's plays in Dallas when she was 10 years old. She frequently made appearances on adolescent dance shows, local television series like The Mr. Peppermint Show, and even dinner plays, where many aspiring actors gained experience in supporting parts. She was introduced to the world of modeling and the stage even though she did not win the Miss Teenage Dallas pageant. She decided on a distinguishing image throughout this time. Inspired by the lead character in the 1966 movie Morgan, a good candidate for therapy, a strange, rebellious person who refused to fit in, she changed her name to Morgan Fairchild. The name wasn't the only thing that changed. It was a silent proclamation. At a time when many actors were waiting to be found, Morgan gradually transformed herself from a shy child into a young lady who understood precisely what she wanted. She would dictate how others perceived her. Morgan Fairchild made her initial steps toward Hollywood after experiencing that hushed anxiety in a classroom years before. Morgan Fairchild stood behind a legend to launch her cinematic career. She played the role of Faye Dunaway in the 1967 movie Bonnie and Clyde, which is today regarded as a Hollywood classic. When she was just 17 years old, the automobile suddenly overturned in one take, and Fairchild handled the risky driving parts. Trembling with dread, she had to crawl out of the hut in a panic. Morgan later saw the event as a warning from Hollywood, one that was cruel, hazardous, and unquestionably compelling. And those chaotic moments in the overturned automobile helped her better comprehend the nature of the work and confirmed her decision that this was the career route she intended to take, even if she was only a shadow behind the camera. Persistently sought chances in the ensuing years. She only got wordless parts, like as the blonde driver in the 1970 film A Bullet for Pretty Boy. Although she didn't become famous as a result of these brief performances, they did teach her how to make it in a cruel profession. After divorcing rock concert organizer Jack Combs in 1973, Fairchild made the decision to leave Texas and go to New York in order to start fresh. Nothing, no mentors, no contacts, just a resolve to never look back. Then the pivotal moment arrived. She was cast as Jennifer Pace in Search for Tomorrow, one of the most popular and longest-running soap operas in American television history, which aired approximately 9,000 episodes over 35 years, from 1951 to 1986, just 6 weeks after she arrived in New York. Millions of American homes relied on Roy Windsor's creation, Search for Tomorrow, for their lunchtime routine. Every episode focused on Joe Gardner's life and transported viewers to the made-up town of Henderson. Mary Stuart portrays a famous figure. Morgan's character Jennifer Pace, who only made an appearance in around 20 episodes, was youthful, disobedient, and contentious in that context. But Morgan was recognized because of Jennifer's fierce presence. Her image gradually became ingrained in the minds of viewers as she started making frequent appearances on national television, and producers began to take notice of the name Fairchild. She was able to break away from the background player's starting line, thanks to this brief duty. Morgan Fairchild went from being a faceless stand-in to a well-known figure on American television. She stayed with Search for Tomorrow from 1973 until 1977, subtly developing a polished, aggressive, and incisive persona that would eventually become the Morgan Fairchild brand. Fairchild not only entered, but also took ownership of the soap opera industry during a time when it was considered the exclusive domain of American women. The golden age of primetime serial dramas on American television was about to begin when Morgan Fairchild relocated to Los Angeles. She portrayed Jenna Wade in Dallas in 1978, but it wasn't until 1980 that her career took off thanks to her portrayal of Constance Carlyle in Flamingo Road, a shrewd, driven lady who will stop at nothing to achieve her goals. She became an A-list TV celebrity as a result of the portrayal, and she was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Actress. The name Morgan Fairchild became an essential symbol of American television from that point on. Fairchild had almost taken over the tiny screen by the early 1980s. In Paper Dolls, 1884, she played the role of Racine, a formidable modeling tycoon. He subsequently changed into Jordan Roberts, a stunning attorney in Falcon Crest from 1885 to 1886, who suffered from multiple personality disorder. She also appeared in a number of popular television shows, including North and South, The Love Boat, Murphy Brown, Friends, Chuck, Days of Our Lives, Melange, and Chandler Bing's colorful yet endearing mother. Turning on the television at that time was practically a certainty of seeing a Morgan Fairchild. She was more than simply an actor. In American popular culture, she was the face that personified the ideal of a soap opera queen. Because of this, audiences erupted in delight when John Lovitz mocked her name in the now famous Saturday Night Live line, "Yeah, that's the ticket, my wife Morgan Fairchild." She looked so familiar. Fairchild also made a daring impact on the big screen with The Seduction 1982, a movie that was well received by critics, but did well at the box office. The New York Times' Vincent Canby described it as a thriller movie that is sometimes hilariously clumsy and without suspense, success, or skill. "In no uncertain terms, the worst movie I've seen in months," said Eleanor Ringel of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Matt Brunson of Film Frenzy, however, made fun of the movie for lacking intellect, innovation, and suspense. Nevertheless, despite the harsh reviews, the movie made $11.4 million at the box office in the United States on a meager $2 million budget. The Seduction, which was widely accepted as the classic guilty pleasure of its time, became one of the best-renting films when it was made available on VHS in September 1982. Fairchild demonstrated her skill on stage as well. She portrayed Skye in the off-Broadway comedy Geniuses, a role modeled after the backstage ladies of hectic movie productions such as Apocalypse Now. Her performance was widely praised by critics, and Time magazine and the New York Times both listed Geniuses as one of the year's best 10 plays, according to her official website biography. It was more than a mere honor. It was evidence that Morgan Fairchild was never limited by picture or restricted to the screen. She was a skilled performer who could take over any stage. Fairchild frequently portrayed ladies on television who will stop at nothing to get love. However, she soon left the position in real life. Fairchild has really only been married once, and it occurred while she was only 17 years old, very early in 1967. Jack Combs, her husband, was a music producer and event planner who would go on to play a significant role in the American rock music industry. Morgan was still singing on little local stages in Dallas when they first met, and they were married before she was well known. The 6-year marriage terminated in 1973 without any children. In order to pursue a career in television, Fairchild relocated to New York the same year, leaving Texas. She decided not to be married again after that. Morgan felt that her private life needed to be carefully guarded, for herself, not for the audience. That decision turned into a subtle yet distinctive trademark. She didn't have to define herself by what society thought she should be. It's possible that her roles were filled with betrayal, hate and love. But in the entertainment business, the real Morgan Fairchild was a lady of uncommon clarity and detachment. Morgan Fairchild has always exercised strict control over her personal life, and this is no accident. She once disclosed in a rare interview that she had been abducted twice in the early 1970s. She was compelled by the experience to erect a psychological barrier in order to live in the chaotic and dangerous world of show business, as well as to protect herself. Morgan Fairchild never got married again after her one and only marriage to Jack Combs ended in 1973. She did not, however, lack a deep love as a result. While working on RKO's Campus Man in 1986, Morgan got to know Mark Seiler, a seasoned film business executive. Instead of a brief Hollywood rendezvous, it marked the start of a relationship that would continue quietly, consistently, and out of the limelight for almost 36 years. Born in Glen Cove, New York on May 2, 1948, Mark Seiler earned a degree in economics from Tulane University. At big studios like RKO Pictures, Hemdale Films and Capella Films, he held several important leadership positions. He oversaw well-known RKO productions as Plenty 1985, starring Meryl Streep, Half Moon Street, 1986, starring Sigourney Weaver, and Hamburger Hill 1987, where he spotted up-and-coming actors Don Cheadle and Courtney B. Vance in their first parts. In addition to being a filmmaker, Mark was a trailblazing digital entrepreneur who led the business GeoCodex, which created content security solutions utilizing encryption and geolocation. Despite spending more than 40 years together, Morgan and Mark never got married. It's undoubtedly a long-term commitment, she revealed in an interview with Closer Weekly. Given how long we've been together, we could decide to keep things as they are. Both of us are growing older. Mark, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 2016, had to transfer into a nursing home for treatment when the COVID-19 outbreak struck. Morgan stayed at their apartment and spoke with him every day on FaceTime. She joked, "I miss him terribly," in a tweet. "I didn't have to get divorced during lockdown though." A funny approach to cover up loneliness that's difficult to describe. The long, steady journey with the lady he loved came to an end on July 7, 2023, when Mark Seiler died of cardiovascular problems after his third COVID-19 infection. He passed away at the age of 75, leaving behind Morgan Fairchild, 2 siblings, Amy and Scott, and a daughter, Carolyn. "I hope the years of memories you shared will uplift and bless you," and another, she posted on social media. "I really lament your loss, but words can't provide you any consolation at this time." She continued to live a simple and independent life after the catastrophe, taking care of her animals, working out every morning, following a diet, and working a regular job. It may be argued that Morgan Fairchild shown genuine love without the requirement for a marriage license, and never needed anything more than love as a unifying factor. Few people are aware of her one major regret in life. It occurred while she was nearing completion of the text for Superlooks, a thorough manual on lifestyle, exercise, nutrition, and beauty. The handwritten book, which was the result of 8 months of intense work and was written entirely by hand while she was always on the go for business, was taken while she was gone from her hotel room. It was inspired by her own experience after decades in the entertainment industry. She felt as though someone had taken a piece of her soul, yet there was no trace left. No Fairchild stayed. She swiftly decided to completely redo everything herself, from the very first page to the very last. "I can't let someone else tell my story," she once remarked. "Every word and every syllable must be mine if my name is on it." After its 1984 release, Superlooks swiftly rose to prominence as a standard for women's attractiveness. With more than 200 detailed photos, the book was more than simply a guide to haircuts, skincare, cosmetics, and body-type-appropriate clothing. It got farther. It taught women how to move, how to demand attention, and how to stroll into a room and turn heads, not by chance, but by planning. Fairchild gave advice on maintaining your fitness, eating, exercising frequently, and above all, taking charge of your public persona. Everything came from self-confidence, awareness, and discipline, from a perfect foundation to thick hair, from a composed stance to an expressive look. What's even more amazing is that, some 40 years later, outstanding looks are still valuable. Morgan Fairchild began practicing personal branding in the 1980s, before it had a name, even though it's a topic that everyone talks about these days. The book was about more than just beauty. Its goal was to instill in women the values of initiative, self-assurance, and self-determination. Despite having a thriving profession and a continuously groomed look, Morgan Fairchild suffered from a number of silent but difficult health problems, beginning with a threat that came from within her own house. The actress disclosed in one interview that she had the unfortunate experience of mold growing in her home, which caused her to bloat up like a balloon. At first she blamed the bronchial issues on perimenopause, hormones, or age. However, Morgan was astonished to discover the connection between her rapid, unexplained weight gain, something she had never experienced before, and the hazardous exposure in her house. When she began looking up black mold online, she saw several doctors as a result of her fight with mold, but she didn't find a solution until she met someone at a clinic that followed the optimal protein diet. Morgan chose to attempt the regimen, which is based on ketogenic principles and uses pre-made foods to make portion management easier, after receiving advice from a mold specialist. She rarely cooked, so this method was quite practical for her, particularly while the epidemic was isolating her. She began her day with phony oatmeal every morning, and then ate different salads throughout the day. She remarked, "I started losing weight like crazy." Although the diet wasn't hard, she stressed that it needed to be strictly followed because even a single cheat meal may reverse the gains. As a consequence, she gradually regained control over her body and shed over 30 pounds. However, Morgan had to contend with more than just weight gain. Few people are aware that she was involved in a vehicle accident in 2016 that resulted in 2 severe hip injuries. The acetabulum on one side was ripped, while the other was sprained. Unaware of the seriousness, however, she persisted in physical treatment in the hopes that she would ultimately get well. Morgan didn't consent to 2 hip replacement surgery until the discomfort continued and progressed to severe arthritis. And she didn't allow herself to fall, as she has done in every storm. With traditional Texan grit, Fairchild described the encounter. She gradually resumed physical therapy after surgery until she was able to stand, and at last resumed her favorite active lifestyle. For a lady who used to be unable to stand pain-free, Morgan even expressed joy at being able to wear high heels once more. Morgan Fairchild never lived only for herself, even in the face of the sorrows, the losses, and the years of silent caregiving for the man she loved. She didn't shy away from the limelight or allow her voice to be muffled by age or disease. Conversely, she decided to speak up when she decided to leave her private life, and her impact started to extend much beyond the screen. Morgan Fairchild was listed as one of the 10 most attractive women in the world by Harper's Bazaar in 1982. Although it was a fancy title, she never felt particularly proud of it. Morgan never took naked photos. She never played with anyone. Her ability to restrain herself was what made her beautiful, not controversy. From ideology to image, Fairchild made the decision to be the primary creator of her image, and kept it that way for more than 50 years, without having to take responsibility for it or defy expectations in an entertainment industry where women are frequently evaluated based on their appearance and makeup. She was a television icon when she was at her best. From Flamingo Road to Falcon Crest and Paper Dolls, viewers recognized her as the epitome of a shrewd, intelligent woman. They were prepared to pay the price to obtain what they desired. However, few were aware that Morgan was a special kind of person in Hollywood, who was quiet, introverted, and extremely intelligent behind the studio lights. Amidst the stigma and misinformation surrounding the AIDS crisis in the late 1980s, Morgan Fairchild was among the few celebrities who publicly voiced their opinions. She spoke at gatherings, lobbied, and raised money, not for attention, but out of obligation. In order to increase public awareness of climate change and the preservation of natural resources, she and her co-workers soon founded the Environmental Communications Office. She took action herself rather than merely urging others to do so. Morgan's perspective became more acute with time. She established herself as a reliable source on global politics on Twitter, where many famous people engage in meaningless debates. The Daily Beast once called her a badass foreign policy wonk, a humorous yet appropriate description of a former soap opera actress who now offers daring, well-informed opinions on U.S. foreign policy, NATO, Ukraine, and the Middle East. In addition, she had a genuine passion for the arts and sciences. Morgan loved ballet and was interested in anthropology and paleontology. She also had a sizable collection of Marilyn Monroe memorabilia, which she studied to better understand a lady who was sometimes misunderstood for being too attractive. The greatest legacy of Morgan Fairchild is not found in her jobs, accolades, or notoriety. It's in the manner she made the conscious decision to live in a society that frequently expects women to be mannequins. She subtly developed her own voice, selected her own persona, and seized control of her body, time, and space for over 50 years. At 75, Morgan Fairchild still lives with presence, something that many of her peers have long since given up on. She doesn't cling to a fading limelight or rely on previous fame. She lives in her own manner, quietly, consistently, and without having to make noise to remake herself. In the nostalgic Lifetime Channel movie, Ladies of the 1980s, A Diva's Christmas, released in late 2023, Fairchild made a comeback to the big screen. Lifetime is well known in the US for its inspirational tales that frequently deal with themes of women, family, and rebirth. In the movie, Fairchild portrays Margot, one of 5 seasoned actors who come together to record the last episode of a fake television show that made them famous. What was most notable, though, was Morgan's appearance, not his attempts to seem younger, nor his excessive polish, but his presence as a living example of television history. She also appeared in a humorous independent film about aging and love in Hollywood that was based on our nearly entirely real tale. Although Fairchild didn't take center stage or steal the evening, her incisive and humorous presence made an impression, maybe because Morgan Fairchild chooses to remain still throughout so much chasing time, which is uncommon in the entertainment business. In her private life, she prefers solitude, not the isolating sort, but a kind of awareness. She frequently posts pictures of her garden, twilight sky, her cherished animals, or a blossoming wisteria trellis on social media, particularly Instagram. "This purple cheers me up every year," she remarked in a recent post. If we are prepared to pause and see it, nature constantly serves as a reminder that beauty is still present. It wasn't a famous person's voice. It was the mirror of a lady who has experienced enough life to realize that true beauty lies in awareness rather than age. Fairchild had an appearance in the memorial documentary Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, following the death of actor Matthew Perry in 2023. Perry was known for calling her mother on Friends. She talked respectfully and empathetically. Even while he was in suffering, he never stopped thinking about other people. Not everyone is capable of that. Women over 60 are frequently expected to move away from the core of Western civilization, particularly in Europe. Fairchild, however, did not back down. She only moved to a different center, one of intelligence, dignity, and awareness. Don't try to outdo the young. Nothing needs to be proven. She serves as a reminder, like a mirror. It doesn't end when you go off the stage. For a lot of women, it is when life really starts. There was never any controversy about Morgan Fairchild. She just lived her life as she saw fit, from the start to the present. Silently, unwaveringly, and without ever having to provide evidence. She may be more remembered than many people who have gone to great lengths to get attention because of this. How about you? Do you think that sometimes the most impactful message of all is just being honest to yourself in a quiet way? Leave a comment below with your opinions. Remember to ring the bell, like and subscribe if you want to continue watching stories that don't yell but nevertheless have a profound impact on you. This way you won't miss any new videos. I appreciate you watching. I'll see you later.